How is it going, guys? Sean Ross here, and I'm here to bring you guys my review on Tokyo Ghoul chapter 137, which was entitled Izanagi. Now, all I have to say about this chapter is well done, Ishida. The character development and growth of Urie's character has been amazing. When you go back to chapter 1 of Rie, where everyone who was reading it at the time hated and despised his character and wanted him dead, to now, in chapter 137, I think everyone right now is rooting for Urie's character and actually loves him a lot more than they did back then. And I just gotta say, that is major props to Ishida's writing and how he handles the growth of his characters. Well done, Ishida. But besides that, this chapter went by so quickly. I mean, this chapter went by so fast, but the content that we did get in this chapter was very enjoyable to read. And all I have to say is right now with this chapter, R.I.P. Kuroiwa, R.I.P. Roma, maybe Rio, and I don't think so, Furthe. Like, that's all I can really say about this chapter. That is a good summary in a nutshell for this chapter. R.I.P. Kuroiwa and Roma. Rio's somewhere right now just roaming the streets, and I do not buy Furthe for a second. We all have seen a ghoul get shot in the head before and come back to life, so that's not fooling me right now with that cliffhanger. But there are some interesting things to talk about for this chapter, but like I was saying, this chapter went by really quick, and the reason that is because this was a very battle-oriented chapter. There wasn't a lot of dialogue going back and forth between a lot of our characters, and what's interesting to note about this chapter is that we actually stayed in one place for this entire chapter. We didn't cut away to the underground to see what's going on with Toka going up against Hajime and also Zero Squad. We don't know anything about that this chapter, but staying with Urie and Kuroiwa during their fight with Roma and Rio, and then sprinkling in Furthe here and there, which I'll get to Furthe in a quick minute because my god, he is ascending to new levels of troll that I did not think was possible for his character. So might as well start with Furthe's character. Like, just by reading through this chapter, and the first panel of him basically laid the groundwork for his character this chapter, where he's sitting at the Washu main desk, just laughing to himself, reading a manga, which happens to be the manga of Gintama. And this is his dialogue right here. Gintama really is the best. Hee hee hee. Like, really? Furthe, really? You're reading a manga while this huge climactic battle is taking place right in front of you. Like, honestly, his concerns right now for what's going on around him, he doesn't give two shits. He does not care in the slightest. Like, even when he does care in this chapter, when he sees Urie cutting down Roma and Rio and he looks shocked, I don't believe that for a second, because this man just is the best actor that I have seen in Tokyo Ghoul. You can never tell if he's actually really shocked and frustrated or he's just being a troll. Like, his character right now is just so enjoyable just to see his reactions within a chapter, because you never know what it is that he's doing. He's reading a frickin' manga in this chapter while people are fighting for their lives in his main office. Like, that right there goes to show how many fucks Furthe gives, and he gives none. And I can totally understand if a lot of people really hate Furthe's character, but when it comes to villains in a series, you need a good villain in order to make the series interesting and compelling. And right now, Furthe, since his introduction, has done a fantastic job at being the antagonist of Tokyo Ghoul. And even though he shows signs of not caring throughout this entire chapter, it's when he does care that he actually delivers some fatal blows in this chapter. And the most fatal blow that he delivers in this chapter is when he stabs Kuroiwa through the throat with a sword. And he does it so nonchalantly. Like, the look on his face when he does it is just blank. Like, he just does not care. And when Furthe is just looking on at Urie, as Urie is just basically screaming at the top of his lungs, just for the fact that Kuroiwa died in his arms right there, and then he switches his rage over to Furthe. As Furthe is about to swing the sword at Urie, we see, with the cliffhanger of this chapter, Furthe getting shot in the head. Now, I cannot be the only one that wasn't surprised or shocked by the fact that Furthe got shot in the head. Like, I would never have predicted that Furthe would have got shot at the end of this chapter, but I am not shocked or worried that he is actually dead, because I am 100% sure that he is still alive. Because if you go back to the Rue Island arc, Yoshitoki also got shot in the head as well by Marude, and then he ended up coming back to life, just rising from the grave like some kind of vampire, and then went to go attack Marude. So we already know that Furthe is already a half ghoul, half human hybrid thanks to Kano and also the Sunlit Garden, but him right now, I'm not too worried about. He's going to be alive next chapter. I'm not too worried about that. What I am curious about is who the hell fired the shot. My best guess and who I would lay money down on right now is Marude, because he's right now been in the sidelines. He's been working in the shadows with some mysterious character that ended up rescuing him during the Rue Island arc and saved him from Yoshitoki. So my money right now is on Marude, but I would like to hear the rest of your guys' thoughts and theories on who do you think fired the shot at Furthe. It could be anyone from CCG who actually has QS bullets or Quinque bullets, but I'm betting my money on Marude, and I would not be surprised if we don't even find out next chapter, because I bet we're going to go over to the underground, and then the next chapter after that, we'll find out who fired the shot. So I think I'm done giving enough spotlight to the king of trolls within Tokyo Ghoul Rio, so let's move over to the fight between Urie, Roma, and Rio, because the way this chapter starts off is with Roma still digesting, I guess you can say, Urie within her kakuja. But then as the chapter goes on, we see like this knife just pierce through the kakuja. Urie bursts out, ends up basically grabbing Roma, ripping her off of the kakuja, and then goes in to save Kuroiwa. However, shortly after, Roma already ripped off his good arm. So right now, Kuroiwa is missing an arm, but Urie right now goes in on Roma and Rio. And this was actually very nice to see, because it does seem like when you actually look at the panels, Urie seems to frame out within this chapter, but he remains in control. Like, you can see his eyes actually go black, forming their Kakugan, but I think he is still in control throughout this chapter while he's technically framing out. But he becomes like the CCG's shining knight in this chapter, because not only does he have his sword Quinque out, but his Kagane Quinque ends up manifesting a shield as well. And Roma and Rio are shocked by this, and once that shield comes out, that's when he delivers the fatal blows to both Roma and Rio. And those panels were just so good. Like, they were drawn so well. I love Ishida's art style, and just getting to see Urie actually put a shocked face on Furthe when he actually decapitates Roma and then pushes Rio out of the main office CCG window. Now, this building is tall, so right now, Rio is plummeting right back down to earth, probably a few 20, 30, maybe even 40 stories. So he's got a long way to go down, but as we see in this chapter, Roma seems to be dead right now. RIP Roma, because basically Urie decapitates her head off and then stabs her head. And I really like this part in the chapter just because even though it seems like Roma is in fact dead, it's that final blow and then the laughter that comes from Roma's decapitated head that really just cements how crazy and how deranged Roma's character actually was. And if this is in fact the end of Roma's character, it was a good end to go out on, and I can just say I really like Roma's character, and even if we don't see her again, the fact that Urie was able to go in like a badass and just defeat her in that way, the fact that Roma did not want to become she just wanted to be a spectator. She didn't actually want to be a part of the play. She was the director, as a lot of people have been saying, and the fact that she actually came in and started participating on the play that she ended up writing and just directing everyone around in, that was her downfall. If she did not get involved, I bet you she would be fine right now, but because she had to basically stick her nose in something that she really didn't want to be a part of and just kind of watch from the sidelines, that's what led to her downfall. That is why she died, and I just gotta say, the laughter at the end, I love that. So after Urie makes quick work of both Roma and Rio, he makes his way over to Kuroiwa, and this section right here is the most emotional part, and I would say the biggest part of Urie's character development that we get to see in this chapter, because as he's basically making his way over to Kuroiwa, he's bleeding out on the ground. He already had his arm ripped out and he's holding him in his arms, but we have Kuroiwa basically crying and apologizing to Urie, basically telling him that he's sorry that he was unable to save Mikito, who was at his side when they went up against Owl. He wasn't strong enough. He wasn't wise enough. And he basically says, I am truly sorry. It is all my fault. And it's at that moment where we basically have Urie break down and he screams, no, it's not your fault. It's no one's fault. And this is where the character development comes into play. And it is just so good because this right here, this internal monologue kind of that he has right here, where he's basically like, back then, what I really resented was my own powerless self, my tiny little self, and my tiny little heart. He had so much emotion when he was a child back then that he had nowhere to put it, no one to place blame on. Sure, he resented himself the most, but when it came to, someone outside of his person, he latched on to Kuroiwa because he was the last person to basically be at his father's side before he ended up dying. And this right here also parallels so heavily with Kaneki, because if you go back to the final volume of Tokyo Ghoul Part 1 in chapter 140, we have a panel right there of Kaneki, white-haired Kaneki, holding the hand of a younger black-haired Kaneki. And then in this recent chapter, we have Urie, an older Urie, holding the hand of a younger, tinier, powerless Urie. And that really mirrors those two people right there of Kaneki and Urie. And it really goes to show that Urie does have some similarities when it comes to comparing him to Kaneki, because they wanted to become stronger for themselves and actually, do something about it. And this really parallels very heavily between Kaneki and Urie's character. And just the fact that he's able to come to terms with the hate inside him for his father's death, and actually come to terms with that and apologize to Kuroiwa and basically tell him on his deathbed as he's dying in his arms, it's not your fault, I forgive you. And then, it kind of gets ruined with Furthe coming in with that blank stare on his face, just stabbing Kuroiwa through the throat with a sword. But the character development that went on with Urie's character in that moment really goes to show the growth of his character from chapter 1 up until now in chapter 137. And then after this moment, it just continues on with that anger of just getting to see Kuroiwa die right in front of him, getting stabbed through the throat, and then having Urie turn that anger on Furthe. And of course, as he's screaming out Furthe's name and, Furthe is about to cut him down, that's when we're left with that cliffhanger of Furthe getting shot in the head and me not being really worried because I know Furthe is going to be fine. This is not the way Furthe is going to go out. And I'm really excited to see the reveal of who actually pulled the trigger for that gun, and getting to see Urie's reaction to all this is going to be very interesting as well. But that is the main gist of what went down in this chapter. Again, it was very short, it was more battle-oriented, but the character development we got for Urie's character was awesome to see. But then also, just having Furthe in this chapter, the troll that he is and the levels of troll that he has ascended to just continues to amaze me. The fact that he's just reading Gintama on the main desk was absolutely amazing. But I definitely want to hear all of your guys' thoughts and opinions on this chapter. What did you guys think? Did you guys think it went by really, really quick, kind of like how I did? Or did you guys not enjoy the chapter? Did you guys enjoy the chapter? Give me your honest thoughts and opinions, and also theories moving forward with who shot Furthe in the head. Definitely leave your thoughts down in the comments below, and subscribe to my channel if you guys are finding me for the first time, because I do live reactions and reviews to Tokyo Ghoul Rio, and I just love getting to talk with all you guys. So the more people that we get to talk about Tokyo Ghoul with, the better. And that is basically it for this chapter. So until next week, hopefully it's going to be coming out next week on a Monday. Hopefully, the schedule for the chapter doesn't get wonky again. But until next week, when we get chapter 138 of Tokyo Ghoul Rio, I'll talk with you guys then. All right, guys, see you later.